everyone to Inspire's Open Training Unit 8, featuring the important work of the Horizon Europe project GenderActionplus. My name is Liv Beisner Petersen, and I am head of the Gender and Equality team here at the University of Southern Denmark. And together with my colleague Molly Okino, also here with us today, we lead Work Package 6 in Inspire on scalable training. With us today, we are very excited to welcome Marcela Linková, coordinator of the GenderActionplus project, which just finished this summer. Marcela is the head of the Center for Gender and Science at the Institute of Sociology of the Czech Academy of Sciences. Her research focuses on sociology of gendered organizations, research careers, governance of research, and research assessment from a gender perspective. She co-chairs the ERA Action Subgroup 5 on inclusive gender equality in the European research area under the European Commission, and was also coordinator of the Horizon 2020 project Gender Action, and is also part of the current Horizon Europe project Gender Safe. A very warm welcome to you, Marcela.
Hello.
We are very excited to have you, Marcela, with us today and to feature the important work being done in GenderActionplus as part of Inspire's Open Training Unit 8. We in Inspire, we find it very important to provide a platform to share and promote the work and findings coming from GenderActionplus's project and GenderActionplus's contribution to the contemporary feminist landscape regarding intersectional equality efforts, both across policymaking bodies and research funding bodies across Europe, are essential for the push for more equitable and inclusive research and innovation in the new era. So GenderActionplus's insight into these two highly important areas are both important, timely in contribution, and its resources can assist both policy and research funding stakeholders and community members in building capacities and competences within their particular organizational or national contexts. So we will start, and again, Marcela, welcome. So to begin, could you briefly introduce GenderActionplus and its role in the European research era?
Thanks so much, Liv, for this kind introduction. It's really a huge pleasure to join you today. So in terms of what we do in GenderActionplus is a EU-funded project. It's a policy coordination project funded under Horizon Europe, and it supports the implementation of the so-called European Research Area Policy Agenda 2022-2024, and specifically ERA Action 5 on inclusive gender equality and gender mainstreaming. It builds on an earlier legacy of Horizon 2020 project Gender Action, which was implemented between 2017 and 2021. And so we continue the efforts to advance gender equality in research and innovation across the entire EU. Our focus is on fostering coordination among national authorities and research funding organizations. So these were our two main target audiences, through mutual learning and policy exchange, ensuring that gender equality remains a policy priority for us in the future.
Thanks so much for that, Marcela. I was wondering if you could expand a bit about why policy coordination at the EU level is so crucial for gender equality in research and innovation. And I was wondering if you could also expand on what have been the most significant advances been in this area in recent years.
Right, so gender equality is our shared EU value, or should be. And as we can see, the implementation varies greatly across the member states. So coordinated policy action helps us to align these efforts, reduce fragmentation, but also very importantly to build critical mass for sustaining the policy change. And so the ERA Forum subgroup on inclusive gender equality provides really critical infrastructure and opportunities for the national representatives to co-create solutions, monitor progress collectively, and coordinate responses to EU developments so that we sort of pull in the same direction. In terms of the main advances that we have seen over the past few years, I think that we will all agree that introducing the gender equality plans as eligibility criterion in Horizon Europe was really a game changer, and it started affecting change. Although we can be very critical about the quality of the JEBs and the implementation, it still remains true that this is the first time ever that we have had an instrument that makes funding contingent on gender equality work. So this, I would say, is the vital aspect of where we are now. Importantly, we also see advances and shifts from gender-focused policies towards Gender Plus and the recognition of intersectional inequalities in research and innovation. This also pertains to the integration of the gender dimension in the content of research and innovation, where we have also seen shifts towards inclusiveness. And importantly, we have a new guidance document, a new framework for inclusive gender analysis in the content of research and innovation adopted by the ERA Forum subgroup on inclusive gender analysis. Very importantly to me, we have also seen important advances on gender-based violence, combating gender-based violence. And last year, the ERA Forum subgroup adopted the Zero Tolerance Code of Conduct, which is state-of-the-art document. It builds on the recognition of the entire continuum of violence, speaks to victim-centered trauma-informed approaches. It builds on the UNICEF 7P model. This is a really comprehensive tool for the entire research and innovation ecosystem. And so with projects like GenderActionplus, but also the other projects, we can support these policy processes with evidence analysis and structured cooperation.
Thank you, Marcela. So I'm also a little bit curious to learn a little bit more about the main activities of GenderActionplus. If you could elaborate on that, please.
So we focused on 5 key thematic activities areas, and these were really closely tied to the policy concerns in the ERA policy agenda. So these were intersectionality and inclusiveness, gender-based violence, gender dimension in research and innovation content, monitoring of gender equality plans, and also monitoring the gender equality priority in the European research area. Our first task was to actually benchmark where we stand in terms of policy. So this is what we did in the first year of the project, assessing what our policy landscape looks like, identifying where we have gaps, and also where we have emerging practices and policies that we could build on that would be worthwhile of further elaboration. This work then served to start developing recommendations, which take the form of policy briefs in our project. And we co-created those with various stakeholders, both within the EU, but also we reached out to other regions of the world where we saw promising practices. And this pertains specifically to research funding organizations in North America as a particular example. So these co-creation activities then formed the basis for our advocacy. So we reached out to policymakers at the EU level, but also at the national level. We worked through instruments that we called National Impact Plan and EU Impact Plan to really drive home the recommendations and communicate the recommendations that we were making. And this got progressively more important as we came towards the close of our project, also in relation to the fact that now the negotiations of the new framework program, Horizon Europe 2028-2034, started. Also, there are a number of consultations that the European Commission launched, and the policy advice that we have developed was really useful for feeding these consultations. We have also engaged in mutual learning and capacity building, and for that we had 2 amazing communities of practice, and there I think really the camaraderie as well as the mutual support came to fruition.
Thank you so much for that, Marcela. It's such important and extensive work that GenderActionplus has been doing. I want to turn attention now to the last point that you were just talking about the 2 communities of practice. I was wondering, could you elaborate more on what the community of practice's goals were and how did they do their work?
So we started with the premise that communities of practice are really an efficient, great way to connect people, create shared contexts and understandings, and this then helps foster policy dialogue and practice on emerging topics. It also helped us stimulate capacity building through mutual learning, but also self-reflection among our members. And we also had them as an opportunity to diffuse existing knowledge to design solutions together, as I already mentioned, for our policy advice. And working together then also empowered us to really generate policy change. So we had 2 communities of practice. One was for national authorities, so essentially bringing together civil servants and policymakers, and the other was for our research funding community, research funders, who specifically looked where they could integrate gender aspects within the entire funding cycle.
Thank you. Now I'm also a little bit curious about learning a little bit more about how the work of the COPs looked like in practice, and also what would you say are the main results and lessons learned?
Mm-hmm. We had 2 main ways of working. We met on a bi-monthly basis, so this was sort of the backbone for really close cooperation. And then we had mutual learning workshops which served as the more in-depth tool, where we also explored topics that were of interest to both the communities. So here in the joint mutual learning workshops, we tackled topics such as intersectionality or resistance, because both our communities identified these as critical areas where we lacked knowledge and capacities. And so we spent essentially 2 days together working on these, building capacity, engaging and exchanging with experts that we invited, and looking how we could advance and integrate what we learned in the day-to-day practices, advancing gender equality in our organizations. The bi-monthly meetings in the policy COP served us to share information about how we were advancing with our national impact plans, which was really useful because it gave our consortium members the opportunity to share what is working for them, what was exciting, how they managed to get the policy process at home on track. So this was really exciting for us. In the research funding community, they had a 3-step process where they had preparatory work, homeworks, which then served to build reflection in the bi-monthly meetings. And then this was followed up by a summary and lessons learned and how to integrate this into further actions in the research funding organizations as they continued forward. The key lessons I would say were the fact that peer learning and practical examples were really the effective way to go forward rather than having abstract theory. So people really need hands-on examples how to do things. Also, trust continuity and structured reflection matter. And we were really happy and fortunate to have an amazing group of people who I would say loved working together, and we really built relations of trust. So people were very open about the types of challenges that they might face or how gender equality work is affecting them at individual level, their personal level. So this was, I think, a crucial element of our success working together. And then, of course, online formats are necessary because we did not have huge budgets to continue meeting frequently. So these require strong facilitation. But it was so obvious that when we met in person that the energy was completely different. And so for deeper engagement, this was necessary. And of course, the 2 mutual learning workshops on intersectionality and resistance were organized physically. And then action-oriented learning really drives change. And so many of our members took ideas from the workshops directly into their institutional processes. And I think here really lies the main benefit in terms of sort of the institutional change and advancing the policy.
Thanks so much, Marcela. I was wondering if you could elaborate on what lessons that you've learned from leading this project, also because the project was so extensive.
I will build up on what I have just said. I think the first thing that I want to stress is that having strong support community is an absolute must. It's so important to learn, to share, but also to provide support and build resilience. And this is something that we need now. The second is the importance of small wins and strategic patience, because advancing gender equality policy is really slow, and the wins are hard won. And really, we need to take joy in everything we manage to push through. The third is the fact that we need to be open to variability. I mean, clearly looking at the EU landscape, we can't think that one size fits all will be an approach that will get us anywhere. So really being open to what everyone can do and trusting the fact that people are really working to do their best in the circumstances in which they are. And then we have also seen how critical capacity building and peer support are in facilitating real change. So I would say that with projects like GenderActionplus, we can really make difference, not only in terms of the knowledge that people amass, how people think, collaborate, and advocate together is really the tangible thing that then stays. It's not just the knowledge, it's the values and capacity to act together.
Thank you. Finally, Marcela, last question. What would you like people watching this to take away?
Okay. I think that policies and policymaking, especially at the EU level, may seem really far removed from our everyday concerns and efforts to advance gender equality policy, and the processes may even seem opaque sometimes. But I would say they are so very important because they set the framework. They give people in the bureaucracies something to fall back on, something to build their arguments on. And this is really crucial because it gives us the basis. Without this basis, we can't really start naming the issue. Another thing that I want to stress is that if you're working to advance gender equality, build liaisons and networks with civil servants and policymakers, especially Democrats in your national institutions and authorities, because we really need to foster allyships, we need to support one another, and we need to work together across the different social domains, research, HR, and then towards the authorities and public administration. And this is really important at this very moment. And I don't think that I can stress this enough, because gender equality and inclusiveness are or should be our core values. And of course, this is true for research and innovation too. But it does not really feel that way right now. It feels like we're at a crossroad, and the threats to our recent advances on gender equality and inclusiveness are really real, are tangible. And when our values are under threat, then our democratic institutions are under threat. And so I think that right now we really need to stand firm and work together to resist the drive to dismantle the gender equality advances that we have built in the 5 last years through references to simplification. We can't simplify gender equality out of our institutions and policies. And so I would really like to urge everyone who cares about inclusive gender equality in research and innovation to engage now in the policy processes that we have ongoing at the EU level and nationally, because every voice will matter now.
Thank you, Marcela. Thank you for this valuable inputs, for this strong final sentence from you, and thank you to the audience for watching this video. Thank you to you.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.